Hey, howdy ho, Lions fans. Welcome to the Detroit Lions podcast, CF Special Senior Bowl edition with our good friend, the inimitable Justin Rodgers from the Detroit News, and my good friend and co-host, Jeff the Riz Rizin. How you guys doing?
I really thought when I said I would never appear on this show again until you got me a view with a retired battleship, that it was good enough. But nope, here we are. I'm out there looking at the waterway at a retired battleship. So kudos to you guys.
We're looking at a ballroom that's empty, so you got the better view today.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yes. But that's the only kind of room we want. Let's talk about the Senior Bowl. There was a good press conference this morning. There was a good press conference yesterday. Started off with Brad Holmes. Brad Holmes had a lot to say. What's your take overall on what we got out of Brad yesterday?
I didn't think it was as much as maybe you guys did. Maybe the bar's a little higher, right? Like I didn't expect a whole lot. We didn't get a whole lot. You know, it was kind of a soft preview of the game. You know, I think the position group we're all intrigued in is the quarterbacks down here. It's a really fine class, right? So you got 5, maybe 6 of the top 7, 5 of the top 6 definitely, and the Lions have a pretty good crew on their roster, and I think a lot of people are intrigued by Malik Willis. I'm one of them. Sam Howell's got some really fine gifts as well, and you know, it's going to be a continued debate in this city for years. I guess continuing on from Stafford now to Goff, who I think is a lesser talent. How far can he get you? When do you take care of maybe upgrading that position, and could it be this year? And so, you know, he gave a little bit of insight in the quarterback class. He mentioned something I thought that was interesting, that he liked all of them have overcome adversity, and that's a big thing to Brad Holmes. He's kind of stocked his roster with guys like that. It's like that natural chip on the shoulder. That
Charles Harris, a great example.
Yeah, for sure. Amon-Ra, a great example. You know, a guy that got angry after he didn't get drafted in the first 3 rounds and goes out to his garage and catches 200 balls on the jugs machine. Like, you know, that's the type of guys they want to fill their roster. So if he's seeing that in these quarterbacks, that tells me that, you know, the Lions are in play potentially to add one of these guys.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And one of the things that we're going to be looking at is the narrative of which quarterback are they going to like best, because they are stylistically all different.
Yeah.
Willis is much more of, and I'm just going to do a broad generalization here, he is much more of a runner who also happens to throw really well, my impression of it. Howell is more like Tim Tebow, in that kind of a tank runner, crafty passer, that type of thing. And then Zappe is more like Case Keenum, like a touch West Coast type guy.
It's the exact comparison I've been using for him.
There you go. Great minds, baby.
I think it's a great comparison, right? Like a high-level backup that you don't feel bad about starting in a pinch.
Right, and so which way does Brad lean on that is something that we're all trying to find out. Do you have any inkling on what that might be?
No, I mean, look, I think Kenny Pickett's the guy down here. Like, I think he's the best quarterback in the class. I don't think there's a way that he falls in a range where the Lions are going to have a shot, right? Like,
even with his tiny hands and short arms?
Let's talk about that just briefly, because everybody wants to talk about that.
They've already got a quarterback with tiny hands. Like,
right.
Like, at least this guy, as he pointed out in his press conference, has played in the weather. He's got film showing that he can handle it. It's not a detriment to his playing style.
And it's clearly not a deal breaker for Holmes to have a quarterback with short hands.
You don't talk, Chris. We're just going to keep cutting you off.
No, I have got news. When we came in here to set up today, Kenny Pickett was walking in with us, and 5 feet away, holding the Gatorade bottle, and they're definitely small. There's no, I mean, the whole, I didn't measure them and all that.
He didn't need 2 hands to hold it, did he?
We're still talking about the Gatorade bottle. You know, he's
yes, we are.
Just
immediately the visual popped in my hands, like drinking a bottle of Gatorade like a sippy cup. Yeah, that's a disqualifier. You're out.
Definitely. Now, does that mean anything? That's the question, right? And we know Goff has, in the weather earlier, he did have ball control problems, but what does that mean? Can Kenny Pickett, and this is something we discussed a little bit last night in the show, is he the guy that breaks the mold and says, well, maybe it isn't the small hands, it's how you use them. That's the big difference in quarterbacks.
We've gone way over the double entendres.
What are we even talking about anymore?
We're on brand, Justin.
Like,
it's
look,
early.
All these things matter, right? There's always going to be the arm length for offensive linemen, and you know, these measurables that matter, and traits that point to success, right? But there's always also going to be the guys where it doesn't matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to disqualify a guy like Aaron Donald because he doesn't meet the benchmarks for what you're used for defensive tackle, well, maybe you shouldn't be in football evaluation, right? Because that that's bad if you disqualify a guy for something. I don't want to say it's trivial because it's not trivial. It matters, but it shouldn't be a straight up disqualifier. And I've seen enough of Pickett to say the hand size thing just doesn't do it for me.
He's good. Yeah. He's really good.
Now
it's like Burrow, right? Like he wasn't on the radar before before he took off, and then he takes off, and you watch him, and just like you could almost. Intangibles are supposed to be unseen, but you almost feel like you could see the intangibles in the way he plays the game, and
you could see the way that the players responded around him, and the way that he gave confidence to everybody. That's not something that you get from Jared Goff very often. That's a different type of mindset. Pickett kind of had that at Pittsburgh. Like he had some talented receivers. He's got a wide receiver. Addison is going to be a first rounder next year, but didn't have a great deal of talent. But he got them to play like above their collective level for a considerable amount of time, and that I think that's something that Brad's going to look at very, very strong.
You cover the Browns too. I mean, that's the reason that franchise took Baker
Absolutely.
number one. Like
that's why John Dorsey John Dorsey, the senior assistant for Brad Holmes, wanted Baker Mayfield more than he wanted Josh Allen or Sam Darnold or Lamar Jackson. So
let me ask from a more
maybe that wasn't a positive point.
From a more strategic point from the Lions, we look at quarterbacks, and quarterbacks are interesting. There's a lot of talk about, hey, we probably need one. We've got a lot of capital invested in a quarterback this year with Jared Goff. It's not like he's going anywhere. Maybe next year is the first time to do it. Do you think the strategy is to get one of the guys this year? We still have a lot of capital next year. We can turn that into something as well. Yep. Goff ended on a high note. We talked about a couple shows ago his stats with Cephas and with Reynolds versus without. And he's a completely different quarterback. Ended the year looking like the quarterback that, well, I don't want to say that took the Rams to the Super Bowl, but much improved and looked like a mid-tier quarterback in the NFL, surrounded by not a whole lot of talent, right? I mean, basically that's what he was dealing with. Are the Lions going to fill up the team, do you think, with more talent, supporting cast, and then go for the quarterback next year? Or do you think this year's the guy, they're going to get their guy, and then they're going to try to bring him along?
I think the nice thing about it is there isn't a right path and a wrong path, right?
Sure.
Like, I'm of the belief that you get the quarterback when he's available. So if that quarterback is available to you that you like, if you're passionate about a prospect and he's in the range where either you can draft him or move up without, expending too many assets to make that move, then you get your guy now. We've seen other quarterbacks, different level organizations, I guess, but with Lamar Jackson and Holmes, and it doesn't hold up on the same tier, but Love, right? Like where they've drafted him with the intent that he's not going to start this year. And look at Jared Goff is probably going to be the starter next year. And he did play exceptionally well those final 5 games, and he did have some success early in the season with Cephas. You can win with a guy like Jared Goff. It's just much harder in this league. And I put him in the same tier as Garoppolo, right? Like that's a guy you can win with. Both those guys, Goff and Garoppolo, have been to Super Bowls with sufficient talent rosters around him. And so you could go into this draft and this free agency and you can just say, let's build the best roster we can around Jared Goff and see how far we can get. And that is a path. There is a path to the Super Bowl there, but ultimately it's a lot easier when you have a stud.
When you have Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson.
I get it. A lot of people don't think that guy exists in this draft class, and I'm not gonna, that's a tough thing to argue against. But again, if you love a guy, if your evaluator who's been evaluating college football for years and years and years loves a guy, thinks he can be that guy, then take him. We talk about Pickett. Like I just don't see the range where he fits with a line. I don't think you're going to grab him at number 2. It's too early. You're going to be picking 31, 32. He's probably going to go somewhere between 10 and 15.
Right.
And might even, very conceivably could climb to the top 10.
Yeah, he could. But 2 is that's pushing the limit on that.
Yeah, and that's where I would argue against drafting a quarterback, right? Don't reach for, I guess, a talent, when you can fill out your roster with better players, whether that's a Hutchinson or a Thibodeau or, even the Notre Dame safety. Like, get stud players where you can get them built around, and then, you hope you can maybe address that quarterback next year. But again, you just never know. You look at Tua, right? It was tank for Tua, and everybody thought the Dolphins, after they gave up all that assets, were a lock for number 1 pick. Right. What'd they draft? 5. Dan Campbell is proven he's going to get these guys to fight. They're going to win more games than you expect. I think more of those ridiculously close losses, the 66-yard field goals, those are going to translate to victories in year 2. So I don't think it's unreasonable to think the Lions are going to win 6+ games next year. It's going to be a lot harder to trade up in the top 5 from 12, 13. It's an expensive. Do you want to be spending 3 first-round picks to go get that guy, or do you want to get him now when the cost is cheaper?
Right. The flip side of that is if you can get Deshaun Watson this offseason, and assuming he's clear, passes the NFL sniff test, 3 first-rounders will get you Deshaun Watson. Is that something that they would consider doing?
The NFL sniff test is definitely a sniff test than general ethical and moral sniff test. I'll give you that.
It's absolutely different. I mean, there are. We won't go down that road.
I don't see the Fords letting something like that happen. What do you think, Rich?
I think I'm in the same boat, right? Yeah. Like I think there's an image they try to project here, right? They want this clean cut organization, and to bring in a guy that's got 20+ pending sexual assault charges against him is that it's tough to absorb something like that.
A Baker's dozen, maybe, but you're talking 20. I mean
22 counts.
It's tough with 1, I mean, and so listen, Deshaun Watson, the player, unbelievable, unbelievable talent, top 5 quarterback in this league, got it all. Absolutely a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, but you have to with a player like that, with a guy like that, you have to weigh the outside stuff, and I just don't see how you could justify it.
Yep. I'm with you. Let's briefly on the free agent quarterback. We all, I think, are in agreement that Jared Goff is not going to be challenged by a new starter coming in.
No, not on free agent level.
No. Tim Boyle is a free agent. David Blau is a free agent. What do you think their chances are of coming back in 2022? At least one or both or neither? Are they going to try to get somebody that's better to back up Goff in that range?
Yeah. I think when you're a team at this point in a rebuild, you don't invest a ton of money in a backup quarterback. It just doesn't make sense. You've already got $30 million tied up in Goff. Why tie up another $10 million in a guy like Teddy Bridgewater or Marcus Mariota? Like it doesn't make financial sense to a build, right?
Right.
And so they really like Tim Boyle, and it goes beyond what you see on Sundays, right? I don't think Boyle was a disaster. He was okay. I mean, in terms of backup,
he was hurt the first time, and I think I don't think we as an organizational media projected how hurt he was. Like he probably shouldn't have played.
Even if he wasn't 100%, like just the rust, the accumulation of rust, the idea that he had never started a game before, so there's a lot of mental hurdles to overcome, and then it's outdoors.
He didn't practice all week.
It's inclement conditions, right? Yeah. So like there was just so many factors out there. But when he did play, what I really liked about him is he's a quick processor. The intelligence is there. I think you'd like to see a little more patience from him. It's usually the opposite, right? Like you're trying to get a guy to think faster, and he's thinking maybe too quick and not taking the time for routes and reads to develop. But for backup quarterbacks, so much of their importance to a roster is what they provide through the week, the support they provide to the quarterback, through the film study, through the pre-scout of the opponent, what they show the defense on the practice field, and Boyle does a really good job checking those boxes. And so I think that's a good reason, a good chance he'll be back. And look at, like, if they re-sign Boyle to a similar deal that he got last year, I think it was what, $2.5 million?
Two and a quarter, I believe it was.
Yeah. So, if they sign him for that, probably at some level speaks to maybe what their plan is in the draft. I don't think it completely dismisses the chance, but maybe reduces the percentage of a chance that they draft a quarterback.
Well, explore that for a second. Would that be something where if they're drafting a developmental style quarterback like Malik Willis, rather than a more pro-ready guy like Zappi or Pickett or like Matt Corral, somebody like that, do you think that would tip it off that they're more leaning towards the developmental side?
No, I think all these guys are at some level developmental, right? Like, none of them are going to start right away. It's going to be.
We hope not.
Well, outside of like some kind of catastrophic injury, right? Like that's not the vision and the plan for this organization. They're going to ride Goff into next year, and
totally agree on that. Yeah,
they'll see where it goes. But I think that's the plan. If anybody's drafted, that the idea is developing them for 2023.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, let's talk about positionally. There's really three options. There's infinite options, but there's three options for the Lions. There's a lot of talk about safety, Kyle Hamilton. There's a lot of talk about Tibbs or Hutchinson, and then the potential if we, hey, we really, really, really like Pickett, we're going to reach for it, or maybe they do some shenanigans with this year's first round and drop down a little bit for him, whatever. You're the GM. You're sitting in Brad Holmes' seat. You didn't get the Fox 2 sports director job. So what are you going to do? What position are you targeting this year at your first pick?
Listen, if somebody's calling to trade up, like that's baffling to me. Like the cost to move up at that point in the draft it's just too costly. And so there's no prospect up there that people are clamoring to move up to go get. So I just don't see that happening. But if somebody calls, I'm taking it. I'm taking more assets. Yeah. I feel good about that 3 through 8 range as much as I do the 1 and 2. But if I stay at 2, I'm taking the edge rusher. I think it's a more important position on the football field. I think it all starts with pressuring the quarterback. The Lions have not been able to do it for several years consistently. I mean, really since Ansah was at his performing at a peak level
before he turned 50.
Right. Yeah. Cut the tree, count the cut the leg, count the rings. So you're left with possibly no choice. Maybe Hutchinson goes 1 or Thibodeau goes 1, and you get the second option. But that's okay. I think both those guys can help right now. And then it's safety. Like safety's important to this defense. I get it. I get why people really like Hamilton. I also get that this is a pretty good crop of free agents, and I think that that's a position.
Yeah.
Price-wise, just the valuation of it throughout the NFL, you can address safety, and I'm pitching and I'm in favor of not only re-signing Tracy Walker, but also getting Marcus Williams. I think they have the money to do it. Get 2 young safeties, pair them together, make the heart of your defense a strength, then build through the draft down low.
$20 million a year between the two of them. Work it out salary-wise. Right. Yep. That's about the range that they're going to get together collectively. Yep. That's you're set for 3 or 4 years. I love that idea.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Marcus Williams fan. I know every new coach and GM likes to bring in their guys, and we roll their eyes at that. And a lot of times it ends up being the Danny Amendolas or the Alex Angelonis of the world, and that's fine. Like it helps with the culture transition, but Marcus Williams is a star. I mean, he's a star playmaker. He's 26. He will be. I mean, there's no guarantees in sports, but the likelihood of him validating that contract is
like he's
high.
Played directly for the coach who's the defensive coordinator, and who, by the way, played a similar stylistic play to him. Like it all adds up very nicely. There's a lot of good free agent safeties. It's a great class.
I don't think Bates makes it to the market. I think that's a franchise deal waiting to happen. Like that dude is just
good for him. Good for
crazy.
The Bengals. That guy did good down here many years ago.
He's awesome.
He's good. I root for guys like that.
Yeah.
Last question. All right, because I know you're a busy guy here. We all are.
Fortunately,
we got 30. We've probably got 32 as a pick. We'll just say that for good fun's sake, and then 34 positionally. We're not talking about the guys. You take your edge second overall. What are you thinking positionally? Because I mean, the edge is such a need for this team. There's a couple of guys that look pretty nice around that same range at the end. I know there's potential Malik Willis is down there. You want a developmental guy. You want someone to complement and give you a kind of a yin to the yang of Jared Goff. You can do something like that. There's a couple other pieces down there. What are you thinking?
There's wide receivers.
Yes.
You could get a lot of wide receivers. David Bell, Chris Olave, James Williams, any number of those. You got safeties, Jaquan Brisker's down there, a couple other guys that are of interest in that range. Where are you Where do you think they're going to prioritize that if they go edge at 2?
So obviously, free agency is going to maybe dictate that. And so I think safety is absolutely on the table if they don't address it in free agency.
Yeah.
If not, I'm looking at linebacker as one of my. I still think they need upgrades there. In the middle.
So who's back? Anzalone's a free agent. Reeves-Maben is a free agent. I'm not sold that either one of those will be back. You're left with
Derek Barnes.
Devontae Beckett and Derek Barnes
is
your linebacking core. So they obviously have to get somebody in there. I guess Anthony Pittman's still around, but
yeah, and I like Barnes a lot, but look at
he's got to be better.
His development was maybe one of the more disappointing things this year. We saw positive development from a lot of the rookies. His was a much shallower growth line, right? And so we asked Aaron Glenn about it, and he wouldn't commit to him as a 3-down player in the future. Like, I thought that was a little telling, right? And so I really think they need that stud middle linebacker. I don't think Dean's probably going to be down there at the bottom of the first round. Not convinced Lloyd's going to make it that far either. So you're looking at that next level.
I don't think Lloyd's going to make it out of the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at
that guy's good.
Smith out of Penn State, Alabama, Christian Miller, like those are the type.
There's a couple of guys from Georgia that are here on the Lions roster on the American team that have a chance to play themselves into the third round conversation and fit that up too.
Yep. Some super athletes for those two guys.
Yeah, not sure that they're greatest football players in the world, but they can absolutely run and cover and run and hit.
That's where you got to trust your coaching staff to develop, right? And then I am fully on board with using one of those picks on a wide receiver. We talk about defensive end not being a good value in free agency because you're just going to pay through the nose for a second-tier guy.
Yep.
Wide receiver is kind of the same way. I mean, look at some of these contracts. It almost feels like wide receiver in free agency is like the final piece for a lot of teams, right?
Yeah.
And so those championship contenders are paying tons and tons of money over market value for guys that are going to get them over the top. The Lions aren't there. There's no reason to spend big money. It's the same reason they let Galladay go with good reason. When they let Matthew Stafford go, it was logical to let Kenny Galladay go too. You go and you draft a receiver there. Some of the names you mentioned, I love the USC kid. I don't think he's going to make it. I thought
Drake
maybe
London?
I thought the broken leg when it happened was like maybe that'll cause him to slide. No, teams
we're going to disagree.
aren't
I'm not a huge fan of his.
I watched Amon-Ra's tape, and I watched 9 games of Amon-Ra's tape.
Yeah.
And it was
The two
London
of them
that I walked
together-
away going like, this is the guy. Like,
The two of them together are fun, and
Yeah.
that leads me. I think he's a better prospect for the Lions than he is for some other teams,
Yeah.
but I'm not a huge fan there.
they need size.
They
think
do.
I think when we talked about it earlier with Cephas and Reynolds, that was the common factor, right?
Yep.
That was the size that they lacked with the other guys. And so Burks is interesting. I think
He's going to be gone.
yeah, I keep thinking
I've said it
of
before.
Chenault when I think of Burks.
If you're not mocking Treylon Burks to the Cleveland Browns with your first round pick in your mock draft, you're not right.
Oh, that's good. See, this is why I hate doing mock drafts. So
I know you do.
I'll send it to you. I'll write the captions. You just give me the order. I'll buy you a couple beers, and
There you go.
nobody needs to be
You know the way
any
to my
the
heart.
wiser.
I love the way you work. Justin, I really appreciate it, man, for making
Yeah.
time. I know you're a busy guy, and it was fortuitous that we could meet today. Appreciate you coming on and doing your thing. Good luck out there. We'll see you down at the stadium, and happy to have you if you wander by and you have nothing to do, and you want another view of the battleship.
Yeah.
This is the place to be.
But do I have to wait for Jeff for a half hour again?
No, you won't.
I hope not.
That was
He's such a disappointment.
blame my dad. It was his fault.
Fair enough. All right, fellas.
All right,
Good
live
chat.
from the
Justin.
Senior Bowl. That'll do it right now. Justin Rodgers. We'll talk to you all very, very shortly. Thank you for tuning in.